Lagos-based entrepreneur Gechi Egemonu was selling more than 500,000 worth of watches, shoes and handbags on Twitter per week. Now with the site suspended by the Nigerian government, Egemonu does not know how she will cope.
I feel very, very distraught. Like I feel really, really disorganized. I don't know how to put myself back together because I've been trying to build this. I've been trying to build this platform. I've been trying to put my best, be consistent. They said, do this, post more, talk to more people. I've done everything I needed to do, but then I was able to do that because I had the platform. But right now, I don't have that platform anymore.
Scores of small and medium-sized businesses across Africa's most populous nation and largest economy are reeling from the indefinite suspension of the social media site.
I know for sure it's been very damaging because a lot of firms run on ad campaigns. A lot of business opportunity has been created just by the whole influencer thing on Twitter. People make money, people spend money. It's kind of like a mini ecosystem on its own, and then just snatching that away from Nigerians is kind of
Nigeria announced the move on the 4th of June, 2 days after the platform removed a post from President Muhammadu Buhari threatening to punish regional separatists. Most telecommunication sites have blocked access.
We're looking at potential loss in their revenue, looking at potential loss, and then the ripple effect would be on output growth, because if manufacturing sector is affected, if businesses are affected, if trade sector is affected, we're looking at potential, decline in economic growth and then economic development. Why? Because the standard of living will be a lot worse compared to the cost of living.
If it gets to a stage whereby there is no social media, I would really pick up my CV and start looking for job opportunities and how to fix myself into the society and how to earn a livelihood, because social media is where I eat.
With 1 in 3 Nigerians unemployed, youths restless, rampant insecurity grinding economic activity to a halt, many economic watchers say this may be Africa's biggest threat.
Yes, what we are saying is that all platforms, OTT platforms, you must register in Nigeria. You must be a corporate entity before you can do business in Nigeria. Because they are doing business in Nigeria. Whether it's Netflix, whether it's Iroko, whether it is Facebook, they are doing business in Nigeria and they are making money and they are not paying taxes. That's the reason. In addition to being able to regulate them, they are making billions of naira out of this country and we are not paying tax. That can't be allowed to go on. Yes, as to the second question, yes, it is true. They've reached, only this morning, I got communication that yes, they are now ready to hold senior level discussions with us. Just now, I can confirm. I just confirmed with my colleague now. Yes, I just got the information. Oh, why not? We will. But our conditions have already laid out to you. 1, to do business in Nigeria, they must register as Nigerian companies. 2, they must be licensed. 3, they will have to refrain from using the platform for activities that are inimical to the growth of Nigeria.
Back. Well, that is part of what we're starting off with this morning. Chidi is the one that joins us. He's a human rights activist. Good morning. Thank you for coming on today.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Are you back on Twitter already?
Actually, it took an hour longer than they actually announced. I tried at 12 midnight, and it wasn't working. It wasn't until 1 a.m. that it actually came back on service. So maybe they need to apologize to us for that.
Does that give us an idea or inkling into how you received the news that FG had lifted the ban on Twitter?
To be honest, we've all been expecting this to happen, and what exactly has this achieved? What exactly has this ban achieved? In my opinion, it achieved absolutely nothing. If it achieved anything, it's probably a bigger pocket for the national revenue from the for the money they will be collecting from Twitter. And I think actually the federal government should share some of that cake they've just collected from Twitter, because if not for the young people of this country, they probably wouldn't have realized that Twitter was a way of generating revenue for the country. So, yeah, I think they should actually go ahead and share some of that money with us, because we opened their eyes to the possibilities that could be gotten from Twitter.
That would be, well, who knows how that will play out. But have you been able to gauge the opinion of those on Twitter in terms of how did they react, or how are they reacting to this news of the lifting?
Of course, a lot of people have been making jokes about it. Some people believe it should never have happened in the first place, because think about it. We all know the only reason why Twitter was suspended was because the president was pissed off that his tweets was deleted, and we all know that was the reason. And we live in a democracy. I think the federal government shouldn't feel threatened by people citizenry expressing their opinions. You don't achieve anything by stifling the opinions and the freedom of speech of your citizenry. It actually has the opposite effect, because I think because of that ban, a lot of people became even more aware of what is going on. A lot of people even joined Twitter after the ban. So I think sometimes these actions and these knee-jerk reactions from the government end up having the opposite effect.
But, you talked about stifling free speech. And, that's a very touchy subject. I mean, when it comes to human rights, I mean, that's fundamental human rights, the freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom of movement, and the rest. But what is quite puzzling, or what is quite interesting about this is 7 months, and this was not properly challenged in court. There was nothing definitive about that. So does that mean that this action was actually right? It wasn't stifling free speech, or the judiciary, or the arm of the judiciary was not able to get a handle on this?
Oh, I'm very happy you asked that question, because I feel like that's also where the media comes in. How many people in the media, I think channels actually did a decent job, but look at the rest of the media landscape. How many people took this seriously? How many people held the government to account? Because we need to call these things out. When we see these injustices, when we see these anti-democratic behavior from the leadership, we in the media need to come out and say this is wrong. Because, I mean, think about it, 222 days, that's pretty much 2/3 of the year gone, and a major medium of communication used by so many people for businesses, used for human rights awareness campaigns and things like that. And most media people were silent about it. I think that's the core of it. We in the media, the people in the media, need to stand up to these things and call out the government. And then this can translate into the rest of the citizenry. The judiciary will get involved, and we can begin to see progress in that regards.
Well, someone has to institute the case in court. The media can do as much, really, and the media has been doing a lot, I must say, actually. But then taking this to court, I mean, testing the laws, as it were, to see where this swings. Has to be the job of perhaps a human rights activist. We have organizations, CSOs that do such. But it didn't look like we saw a coming together as much, people heading to court, maybe a class action, as they say. So what exactly happened? What was that disconnect? Except you thought it was right, so no point going to court about it.
No, I think in this particular instance, we obviously know that people had an alternative way of getting back onto Twitter. And I will go as far as saying that the Twitter ban only happened in name only, because in practice, I was on Twitter. I'm not ashamed to say that. And most people in Nigeria were on Twitter. And I think that's, in a way, kind of, allowed people, give people, that mindset that, we don't really have to worry about it, since we can get back on Twitter. But going to the point you made, you're absolutely right. There should have been more outcry. There should have been more challenges to that in court. And I think some people within the judiciary judiciary. I know Serap did raise some points about it. I know the human rights lawyer Femi Falana did raise some points about that. And unfortunately, it wasn't followed through. I think, like I said, because people had a way of getting onto Twitter, and so probably it didn't hit us as much as it should have. And maybe that was why we saw this a bit of lackadaisical attitude in that regards, yeah.
The Serap case you mentioned, in fact, I think 100,000 naira was awarded against Serap. You know, in that case, so it was as though they went and their hand got burnt. Yeah. But it looks like the ECOWAS court will make a decision on this in the coming days. And, you know, the question we asked, and I just wanted to get your opinion, is to what effect will that be now that the government has unsuspended Twitter, even though you say Twitter never really went anywhere. So if that judgment is given, let's just imagine, are they against the government or what? Can that be taken in retrospect? What effect will that have?
Of course, it's never too late to administer justice. It can be delayed, but it should never be denied. And definitely, the act of suspending Twitter wasn't a democratic act at all. For me, it was a dictatorial act. It's not something becoming of a democratic society. And I feel like, yes, it should have been challenged, and going forward, people should stand up to these things and make sure that they don't repeat itself again. And I think it goes back to the older people of this country. They need to stand in solidarity with the young people and call these things out when they see them. Like I said earlier, people in the media, we all need to join hands together and make sure whenever we see these injustices that they are called out.
Young people, would you regard the suspension of Twitter by the government as an affront on young people at the time it happened? Or would you say some maybe insensitivity of government to young people, or a way of calling the young people to follow the straight and narrow?
I think it's definitely a challenge, and it's definitely an affront to the young people, not just the young people, but to everybody who values and who respects democracy and who values the freedom of speech that is accorded to every democratic country. So banning Twitter, which is a major medium of communication, a platform that we have seen that have actually had a lot of positive influence on society. I remember the case of Hine Umoren, who was murdered in Akwa Ibom. It was through Twitter. People started investigating and doing all sorts of things. And through those efforts, we were able to crack the case of the murderer, of the alleged murderer of that particular individual. So, and in this time, 222 days that we haven't had Twitter, it's been who knows how many cases would have been solved if we had that.
Would you then say, just before we throw it to Abuja, would you then say it is a counter-protest of sorts when you say that people went on Twitter via other means, what in finance they will call ways and means? Would you say it's a counter-protest on the part of Nigerians?
In a way, yes. In a way, I think young people of this country have always been very inventive. We've always been very creative, and we've always found ways around measures that we don't like. And finally, I just want to say that the government of this country should stop infantilizing young people. And I remember during after the ban, the minister came and said, VPN might affect your security. And I was thinking, no, minister, I'm sure you are not trying to explain to the IT-savvy young people of this country about how internet security works. So things like that, or them making comments like, oh, you can go and use other social media platforms. You can go use Facebook. You can go use Instagram. The truth is that some people build their profiles on specific platforms. There are people who have a massive following on Facebook and do their businesses there who don't have profiles on Facebook, on Twitter, and vice versa. There are those who have profiles on Twitter who don't have it on Instagram. So the government and the leaders of this country should actually respect the intellect and the adulthood of the young people of this country.
Okay, if you could make this response short, do you think this is going to address, because they want to address a number of issues on the social media at the moment.
Okay.
Do you see this addressing the quote-unquote mob action, which some people say happens on Twitter?
To be honest, I don't think this has anything to it. Some people already feel like it's not a coincidence that the election is coming up, and then this
there you go.
And then this Twitter ban has just been lifted. So, and we know that you know, the people in power, unfortunately, aren't the most innocent when it comes to mob action and things like that. So, if their concern was mob action, I don't think they would be lifting Twitter, but I really don't think it has anything to do with that.
We'll talk a little more about that maybe a little later, but let's go to Abuja and get some more perspective. Markwe.
Thank you, Chamberlain. We have with us Mr. Wale Oluwade, who is the CEO of Growth Masters Consulting. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning.
Thank you, Mom.
And a Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you.
I was just about to say, it's like it's going to be a good year indeed.
Yeah, it is. It looks like that, you know, and we pray for a good year.
Indeed,
Okay.
we're always hopeful and optimistic, but
Yeah.
no one saw this coming. Yes, indeed, we had been hinted, because they had been told, oh, a few more clauses just needed to be sorted out, and the ban was going to be lifted. That's what we were told sometime last year.
Yeah.
But I don't think we saw that the ban was going to be ultimately lifted in January this year. Did you see it coming?
No, I didn't, but, I mean, like you said, it was expected to have been lifted, you know, since way back, you know, so it's better late than never, you know, and I listened to the guest in Lagos, you know. There are, I mean, in summary, economic implications, legal implications, and the biggest one for me is reputational, you know. So if you talk about the economic implications, investments implications, tax revenues implications, freelancers, you know, you call them influencers, whose source of livelihoods depends on these micro-blogging sites, startups. The critical segment of the economic loss, you know, is SMEs, you know. Now, there are figures bandied about here and there. I saw the one on Guardian this morning, 555 billion. I think that's a bit exaggerated in my own view. 100 billion, 150 billion, that should be reasonable, you know, loss for me, economic loss. Now, coming to legal implications.
Economic loss on whose angle now?
On all these demographics that I listed.
Okay.
You know, startups, SMEs, e-commerce platforms, you know, microbloggers, freelancers or influencers, as you call them.
Even for the microblogging site itself.
Even for the, of course, definitely.
It certainly must have
Of course,
money.
definitely.
If you were to put that in dollars, do you
But
think that perhaps...
this is not a Nigerian entity, so, you know, that's their own loss. But we're talking about Nigerian economic ecosystem, you know. Now...
No, that's why I'm trying to, you know, put the Guardian figure perhaps
exactly.
in context. So I don't know if it includes that, because
exactly.
that would be in dollars
exactly.
if you were to convert it.
Exactly.
Maybe that might, you know, raise it up to that
threshold. But the computation is wrong. And like I said, it's, I mean, if this was examining the loss to Nigeria, the economy of Nigeria, it's overly exaggerated, you know, in my view. And so legal implications, the UN Universal Declaration on human rights, for Article 19, you know, expressly forbids infringement on the rights of people to freedom of expression, you know, either to seek or disseminate or receive information. African Charter on Peoples and Human Rights, you know, likewise, Article 9, subsection 2, forbids, you know, this kind of attitude. And then, of course, the Nigerian Constitution guarantees the rights of Nigerians, you know, to freedom of expression. Now, there's a line of demarcation between freedom of expression and sedition or incitement to violence or hate speech and all of that. These are crimes. And I strongly believe, of course, social media has given room to reckless individuals or groups, you know, purveying hate speech, incitement to violence. These are crimes, and people who do that, you know, should be, you know, taken to face the law. They should face the law and pay for such crimes. But then, like the guest in Lagos said, there are certain practices, and that brings me to the third implication, which is reputational damage. Mankwe, in the midst of all of this, the biggest, you know, casualty Nigeria suffered is the damage to our reputation as a so-called democratic society. There are there are behaviors that are totally antithetical to, what a democratic society represents. One of them is the banning or infringement or an erosion on the rights of citizens of such societies to freedom of expression. The first thing the dictatorial societies or fascist societies do is to go clamping down on the rights of their citizens to express themselves freely. And this is where, I feel so sad, for Mr. President, and Nigeria as a whole, that the advisors of this government did not think it wise to say, okay, we've done this for a week or 2 weeks. Can we pull back and keep the negotiations going with Twitter? Because, Mark, what does this do to Nigeria's image? In the midst of every other, crisis we face, and which is available to the global world. I mean, the lingo out there is that, the world is a global village. There's nothing going on here that is not known all over the world. Now, you add to that, or you top on that, the fact that a potential tourist or investor wants to come to Nigeria. And like we've said, they don't wait for Mr. President to go to those places to say, I'm looking for investors. Nigeria is beautiful, come and invest. We have the best, tax system and all of that. No, they take their advisories from their embassies in Nigeria. And what do you think they say? So a potential investor to Nigeria calls the UK embassy or Singaporean embassy in Nigeria to say, tell me I want to come to Nigeria, and then he says, see, are you prepared to, when you come to Nigeria for a week or 2 weeks, you don't have access to your Twitter feed? So the reputational damage to Nigeria is incalculable. So even this 555 billion, for me, even though I said it's exaggerated because, that's economically speaking, but for the reputation of Nigeria, it's incalculable. And that's where the big issue for me is, like I said, it's good enough the ban has been lifted, but it was way too long. Way too long. This shouldn't have dragged on as it is. So many livelihoods, young individuals, that's another implication. We have a youth crisis of unemployment and insecurity, and these are, conjoined, because if the youths don't have something to do, we've discussed this over and over again, they're going to find something to do, so they take to crime. Now, they have a window of expressing themselves, of, a lady imports hair, foreign hair from wherever, and all she does, advertise them on a Twitter feed or Instagram, and then you go shut that down. So what are you saying? She should be carrying this hair, physically all over the streets and all of that, so it was a wrong, decision, wrong-headed on every level. But even when it was done, I thought some, calmer heads should have sat down with the authorities and said, no, gentlemen, we need to pull back on this, especially for the reputation of Nigeria in the global community. Democracies don't behave like this.
Okay, so I was just about to say that I think you missed the first two reports which we played. The first talking about the economic implications of the ban. Shortly after, I think I was done shortly after the ban on Twitter, and we spoke to a lot of small businesses which depended on these platforms for adverts, and also they talk the response of the federal government saying that they should go to other platforms. The other social, after all, it was not all the social media platforms that they banned. But there was a question, there was a huge question, because in his defense, when he was speaking to State House correspondents, Olajulai Mohammed, who is the Minister for Information and Culture, was talking about how these social media apps are making a lot of money from Nigeria, and they cannot just continue like that without paying taxes. So they were asking that they come and set up shop here in Nigeria and be able to, there should be some accountability, so to speak, to government over this. And we do not know what the final terms of the agreement are and what has been done in that regard. But then there was also the question of, is it only Twitter that hasn't set up shop here? Why is it the only one you have clamped down on? There were questions around that. But do you think that based on that, because as I said, we're not very certain of the final outcomes, but we do have from the press release that was given now, we do have that there were some benefits accruing. For instance, I'm seeing here Twitter has agreed to enroll Nigeria in its partner support and law enforcement portals. It gives details on what the partner support is. We're also seeing here Twitter has agreed to act with a respectful acknowledgement of Nigerian laws and the national culture and history on which such legislation has been built and work and work with the FGN and the broader industry to develop a code of conduct in line with global best practices. Twitter has agreed to actively respectful acknowledgement of Nigerian laws, etc., etc. We've also seen here, yeah, and that's why they've lifted the suspension of Twitter. There is nothing specific
Concrete, that's the word
about
actually. Concrete.
the economy.
Exactly.
Should we be asking questions on that?
Absolutely, Malkwe, absolutely. And also, I mean, all of those you reeled out, I didn't say anything concrete, in concrete terms. Maybe they don't want to, you know, make it public, but also, like I said, this is a democratic society. It should be in the public domain, you know. The benefits accruing to Nigeria. But, I mean, meanwhile, the tax revenue implications of losses to Nigeria is because everyone who advertises, everyone who makes sales, there's a way FIRS or whatever, you know, states, whatever, they have a way of, you know, taxing those, you know, income. So does Twitter have to set up shop in Nigeria? I don't think so. I don't think so, because Facebook doesn't have any office in Nigeria, Instagram, even though they're owned by the same entity. I mean, even WhatsApp, you know. But the point is that there are ways, better ways. This whole episode, you know, should have been handled in a more mature, more diplomatic, you know, manner than
but
this.
in terms of taxes, because I know that a number of other countries are beginning to raise that, taxes on adverts. So we've seen that with the European countries and Facebook giants and also Google as well.
Absolutely.
Do you think that we should be making a demand on the social
That's
media
the point.
companies?
The social media platforms are primarily advertisement, you know, platforms. And they are more effective than the traditional method of advertisement because they are faster, they can reach more people. You know, how many people watch TV or read newspapers if you advertise? But on social media platforms, everybody's got a handheld device, you know. So it's primarily advertisement, and that's where the revenues are. You can hardly watch a video on YouTube without, even if it's 30 seconds, without seeing adverts and all of that. Those are, you know, revenues. So government should sit down. You know, you would expect people at the FIRS, you know, to actually sit down and have a department or section there, you know, named, you know, e-commerce, whatever, or tech sector, whatever, taxing, you know, watching all of this critically and making sure Nigeria does not lose any kobo or any naira of potential tax revenues. And but like I said also, Malkwe, this whole episode, this sordid affair should have been handled in a more matured, more civilized, more diplomatic, you know, manner, because the huge reputational loss to Nigeria, like I said, is incalculable. You know, it's incalculable, and I mean, for tourists, what tourists want to come to? Because if you mention nations, a picture immediately comes, it's branding actually. You know, you mentioned the UK, okay, you mentioned America, you mentioned Dubai, you mentioned Singapore, a picture immediately comes to your mind. So if you mention Nigeria and the picture that comes to mind, oh, where they banned, where I want to have access to my Twitter or my Instagram or anything can happen. You know, so that's what we missed it. We missed the ball there.
Okay. Let's leave this to Lagos now. I'm sure that our guest there will have some responses.
Yeah, and so thank you, Makwa. Well, winding down this one, two things. First, how do you see this playing out moving forward? Because there's a school of thought that says, look, well, yeah, you suspended it, some, what's in the name, suspension ban, they use it interchangeably. Yeah. So, but some did without it for a while, quote unquote, assuming that were the case. Yeah. And now it's back, they put in some regulation, so they expect the regulatory bodies to do or comply with what they've agreed with. But then, how is this going to impact on the users themselves? Do you think they will feel threatened and say, well, there are rules now, comply with the rules or you're off?
Well, I think talking about rules, they should start by implementing basic traffic rules. If they are able to do rules on Twitter. On the road. So they should start from that. We all know that, you know, the people, sadly, that are in charge of decision making in this country sometimes aren't the most meticulous with rule implementation and rule enforcement. So I don't think I'll be holding my breath on them even attempting to implement any of these alleged rules that we haven't even heard about. We haven't heard the details of.
It will be on Twitter to ensure that they stick to that.
Well, to be honest, I think the big takeaway from this is, you know, please don't try to stifle free speech. Don't try to, you know, dismiss the opinions of people. Actually, listen to your citizenry, listen to what they have to say. convince, not by the power of your status or your influence, but the power of your arguments and ideas. And I think that's the big point that the government is missing in all of this, you know. We live in a democratic society. The Twitter ban was definitely unconstitutional. You can't just wake up one day and with the wave of a hand, you know, ban a popular, you know, platform where people do businesses. I mean, think about it. I know in some parts of Europe, there were times when, you know, there were agitations and people, and some of the governments weren't happy with, say, the functioning of businesses like Uber. I remember in the UK at the time, they weren't so happy about it. But what did they just ban Uber? No, they went to court. That's what you do in a democratic society. When you're unhappy about something, you go to court and argue it out.
All right, Chidi Zwane, human rights activist, thank you for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
We're back in a moment. Stay with us.